Alright folks, welcome back to the Grant Garage. Today we have a 2008 Chevy Equinox and we're doing tie rod ends, the outers. So I'll set the camera down here and just kind of show you. I have it of course in the air on jack stands, and if you go from side to side and try to wiggle it, you'll feel just a little bit of play. And I do a top and bottom too, just because we're looking for play essentially. And it doesn't move that way. Now there's a couple of other things that could make it move side to side. There's of course the inner tie rod. There could be if your rack and pinion was loose. But what we're looking at is this guy right here. And I've already kind of gone through, so I do know that this is what's loose. I don't know how well the camera will show it. In fact, it won't show it at all because I can't shake the tire and hold the camera. But if this part here is, this part here wiggles with the tire when I wiggle it, and this part here doesn't. Kind of, if it's easier if you have two people. One shake the tire, one kind of just hold your hand here, and you can kind of feel that they move a little bit independently of each other. It's essentially just a ball joint. There's a stud that goes down into this, got a nut on the bottom. That part threads onto the tie rod. So first thing to do is get the tire off. Little tab here, flathead screwdriver, pull the cap off. Put that aside. These lug nuts are 3/4 / 19 millimeter. Looks like we're missing one. And with any luck, the tire's not too seized, set it aside. Get you in here for a better look. We have, the whole tie rod here. We have this here lock nut. Essentially this threads onto this, and then that lock nut hooks it in place. Because to adjust the angles of the tires, the toe, you would spin this in or out of that. So this keeps that from doing that once you're adjusted. Rubber boot, it would hold grease if there was any in it. Got the nut here and a little cotter pin. So the first thing we're going to do is remove that cotter pin. The best thing for it is side cutters, and I can't find mine, so we'll improvise that a little bit. Don't have side cutters, but I have these. It would work a lot better with the sides, but tab's bent over. So we'll get that as straight as we can. You can always try to knock it out a little. But we're in northern Michigan. Nothing works that easily. It's also worth noting that if you can't get this out and you just unthread the bolt, it will almost always bring it. This one here doesn't really want to move. I'm kind of just chewing up the other end. It's not really the end of the world though, because if that ends off, it'll come out this side too, and that looks like that's what we're gonna do. So I'm kind of pinching it and then prying against the nut, and it's pulling it out in pieces, but that's fine. New tie rod end should come with it. Whether it comes with it or not, you should replace it. There's the other part. And I'm going to go get rid of those so that they don't end up just on my garage floor and find their way into tires. Now, next thing I'm going to do is get this nut. And all I'm going to do is loosen it. It will move the head of this a little bit. And I'm only going to loosen it a little bit. And some people that actually work at some shops aren't going to like necessarily the way I do this exactly, but it works for me. So I'm only going to loosen that a little bit. If you do it a different way, you can take it more, but the bare minimum to loosen that. Now I'm going to go back to this down here. On this particular car, it's the same 3/4 that I used to take the tire off. That's off. Now this is just a tapered shaft that goes down into there. I've seen a lot of people say, and I've even seen people do it, but it's never worked for me, But they say if you just strike right here, sometimes you can get that to pop off. I can't say it's never worked for me, but it rarely works for me. I'm still going to try that first because that's the quickest and easiest. Yeah. So this is the second plan. Pickle fork, or tie rod / ball joint separator. But all it is goes around the stud, and it's tapered, so that the farther you hammer this in around that stud, the more it's applying upward pressure. And then you just hit it with a hammer. These are what I always find works the best. Okay, that is a very stubborn tie rod end. I don't think I've ever had one that stubborn. Usually the first couple smacks pops it. So now I'm going to smack the side while I got all that pressure on it. Still nothing. Hammer my tie rod back in. I'm just going to give this a couple taps. Same thing because of that pressure. If you were removing this for any other reason, you wouldn't want to you wouldn't want to use the pickle fork or hit the bottom like I'm about to, because both of those things will ruin this tie rod end. This one is already bad, so not a big deal. Okay. Tie rod is up and out of there. It is free. So now that this is up and out of there, I only backed that nut off just enough. And as you can see, it flops around. That's why I loosened this nut up here first, so there was something still holding it. But now, I only loosened that nut just that little bit. I'm going to unscrew the tie rod off of there. Okay, now the biggest flaw in the way that I do things is that this old one and this new one potentially could be a little bit of a different size. I'm not going to do any real strict measurements. I'm just going to kind of, hold them up next to each other. They look like they're very similar lengths on this part here. Just going up to the top from where the stud is. Pretty much, yeah, from, center stud. Gotta get away from the camera. Center of the stud all the way to this here. And that's kind of what I'm counting on, because I'm going to reuse that old nut and I'm just going to tighten this new one up just to the point where the other one, or where it meets the nut, essentially. And yeah, I know it's not a foolproof thing. So now, okay, to right there. And then when I snug that up, it should be pretty close to where it was before, and we'll verify a few things when we're done too. Usually that's just a good way to get it close. And then now that's screwed up into there, see, I go until it kind of touches the nut, but it's crooked. I haven't actually spun this tie rod, so I'm just going to go to the closest position backed off that goes straight up and down. Little bag of parts that comes with it. And usually they come with a washer, and then the castle nut that was already on the stud goes on the bottom here. I could believe that you might find some of these with like a flange nut. If you're curious, this is a 17, but it was a 19 I took off, so it's going to be whatever size you have. And we'll go ahead and tighten it. Okay, there is a torque spec for these. I don't know it. I have literally never torqued one. Usually I get it to, I don't know, what feels tight. And then I look to see if the holes for the cotter pin lines up. If not, I either tighten or loosen it, usually tighten it, until the cotter pin does line up. I'm going to slide that pin through the, I don't know, the towers, I guess, of the castle. Bend the tabs. These cutters aren't real suitable. I bent the longer tab up and around, and I cut the shorter one, I cut to even shorter yet, just so I can get it up and out of the way. And these ones are a greasable one, so a little Zerk fitting comes in it. That threads into the top. I'm sure these are probably like a 7mm or something. For what I'm doing, they're a size slip joint pliers. And you don't over tighten those. Those will strip out of there real easily. Okay, and then we got our nut back here. And we're going to tighten it. Now, it's probably close on alignment because of that, as long as these were similarly sized, or were the same size as the old one I took off. No matter what you do, you should still take this to an alignment shop after and have an alignment done. But we're going to get as close as we can. So what I'm going to do is, I kind of moved this a little bit while I was doing it. I'm going to straighten out, see if they look right now. And if they do, then I'll continue by putting the tires back on, letting it down, and seeing if they still look right. So, okay, the tilt function of my camera is not going to let me actually hold it up like that. It tries to tilt. So, if we look from the front, and it's real hard to see on the camera. I'm kind of like matching that rotor with the rear tire. It's not a scientific measurement at all, and it can change when you put it on the ground too, but it's close. And then the same thing with this here. It looks pretty straight. Steering wheel is also straight. So we're going to put the tires back on it. Also, I know it's not in the video, but I did both sides. That's why that tire's off. Okay. So we'll get this tire back on. Okay, we're going to leave that center cap off because I might have to torque those when we're back down. That feels a whole lot tighter, so that's real nice. I'll go put the other side on now. One more check here. We're still up in the air, but the tires are back on it. Essentially, looks fairly straight. Same thing with that. Looks fairly straight. So I'm going to put it on the ground. I'm going to bounce it a couple of times. And then I'm going to take a look at it again. Okay, the vehicle's back on the ground. I'm going to bounce the suspension a few times. And if you want to, you can even drive it kind of backward and back in. Just because now the suspension is more likely to be where you're actually going to be driving. And we're going to come back and look. And that one looks pretty decent. It's real hard to show anything on the camera. And like I said, this is not the world's most accurate way anyways. You still need to take this in for an alignment with the people with the machine. A lot of people will also say that you can measure from like the outside of the tire in the front and the outside of the tire in the back over to the other side. And if those two measurements match, then you're good. And that gets you pretty close. It really does. I kind of just, I'll eyeball it and then I'll go take it for a ride, make sure it's not pulling funny or anything like that. and then I'll take it in for an actual alignment. So at this point, I think that those look pretty good still. So all I'm gonna do is torque the tires down properly, and then I'm gonna go take it for a drive. So what we're doing here, driving. Making sure, steering's nice and tight, and it is. We're right about cruising speed. And big thing, obviously I'm filming with one hand. And if I don't do that, we're still on the road. So it's not really pulling to either side. It responds accordingly when I do. And like I said, I'm not on the wheel. Track's pretty straight. So that's really what we're looking for. So anything should have been obvious during that drive. You also feel the tires. If your alignment's real off right now, they'll be a little bit warmer than normal. And they're not. They'd have to be pretty far off. And that's all we really have is, I can look and camera doesn't see it real well, but standing here in person, those look pretty close. Visibly, I can't see any alignment issues. It drives fine, it handles fine. So the next step then is I'm gonna recheck, now that I've taken a test drive, I'm gonna recheck the torque on the tires, put the caps back on, and then it's on its way to an alignment shop, because I certainly don't have that equipment. And so that'll do it. That's an 08 Equinox. Did both outer tie rod ends. Thanks for watching the Grant Garage. Like, subscribe, and comment if you got any questions, and we'll see you next time.